Hello? You're muted, Azalea.
I'm so sorry. Can everyone hear me now?
There we go.
So sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay, let's see how many people do we have in the room right now. Okay, we've got about 8 people here. Should we wait a little longer? Arias, are you in here with us? Or Tim, are you in here with us? Who's in here with us? Should we wait a little bit longer for some more participants to come in? Let's see. Want to make sure that people are able to really benefit from your story, Tyler. So
Yeah,
looks like
for
we've
sure.
8 people here with us right now. Um, all right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let's see if anybody else is coming in. Yeah, it looks like we've got 5 attendees here. Um, okay. Okay, well, hi everyone, and welcome to Clarusway Tech Talks. This is our open community event series where we learn from real people making real moves in tech. I do see, like I said, we've got about 5 people here. So thank you to all the QA professionals, career changers, or maybe those of you who are just joining out of a curiosity to learn more about DevOps. We do hope that this interview can be an inspiration for all of you, or at least some real food for thought. Um, so tonight we are joined by Tyler Durham. He is a former QA professional who has now successfully transitioned into a DevOps career. And his story isn't just inspiring, it is practical, relatable, and packed with some real world lessons for anyone considering a similar shift. So, Tyler, welcome to Clarusway Tech Talks.
Yeah, thank you, Azalea. Appreciate you guys having me here.
So let's jump right into your story. Now, you used to be in QA. So can you tell us
Mhm.
a little bit about how and where you got started?
Yeah, so I started in QA back in 2011. I worked as a contractor at Hewlett Packard, and my job back then was to test all of their enterprise laserjet printers. And kind of my focus back then was focusing on the Mac side of things, because before I had worked for Apple as a subcontractor, working on the first iPhone, supporting the first iPhone, and then working on their was it Mac OS 10.5 Leopard, which was their first OS on their Intel chipset. So kind of got into QA actually a little bit by accident, but that's kind of where I started was at Hewlett Packard.
At Hewlett Packard. And did you have an interest in QA beforehand, or you really started with no background experience at all?
I didn't really have much background experience. The only tech experience I had was just doing technical support for Apple for about 2.5 years. And when I heard about the job, it was from a friend, and his father was a developer there. And he got me the interview, and he's like, "Do you want to test?" I'm like, "Sure." I have no idea what testing is, but why not? It can't be any worse than what I'm doing at the time, which was doing landscaping and concrete work. So
Oh,
it was quite the
wow. Okay.
change. So I was very happy to get into air conditioning and try out testing.
Nice.
So
And
yeah.
so, I guess, so what made you want to start to think about a transition? Was there something about what it was that you were doing in QA that you had more of a desire? Was it sort of, monotonous in sort of the testing? Like, can you tell me sort of what led up to you wanting to make a transition? Did you feel stuck in some sort of way? Because we want to, there may be some people in the room who are in that similar situation.
Yeah. So originally, if we back up a little bit, I originally went to school in 2006 to Utah State University, and I wanted to major in computer science. So I've always wanted to be in tech, and I wanted to be a software engineer. And the goal at the time was to go get my degree and work at Bungie, work on Halo. I was really into video gaming, and I wanted to just be a video game developer back then. But as
Okay.
the further I get into it, I realized I didn't have the math chops, so it just didn't kind of work out that way. But as far as from the QA perspective, for me, I kind of wanted to do a little bit more than just like testing. For instance, when I was at Hewlett Packard, it was just kind of what we call black box testing, where you don't know too much about the guts of it. You just kind of get the test scripts and then you just kind of go for it and start running through all the test scripts that are predefined for you and manually test it. Then I pivoted into automation. Once I got into automation, it was a lot more fun because it's really cool seeing like everything on the screen just go through like a workflow, and you're just like, that's super cool. You're just hit a button and go. But I hit a
Right.
point where I kind of just, I don't know how else to say it. It just kind of got boring to me. It wasn't as challenging for me, and it's no disrespect to any quality assurance engineer professionals out there. It just wasn't my thing. So I started looking into DevOps. I came across it back in 2015 when I was at a engineering heavy shop, and we were starting to get into Kubernetes at the time, and we needed people to start doing testing on our SaaS platform. So I kind of made my way into that. Took about 6 months, and I pivoted by just learning Python and had great mentors at the time, and that's how I got into that. So, but to answer your question, yeah, I just it just kind of felt it just started getting a little bit stale for me. So
It wasn't exciting as you thought Halo was going to be.
yeah, I mean,
Working
definitely
on
not
video
not as much
games.
prestige, not as much prestige
Yeah.
as like working on Halo would be for sure. But yeah, it just kind of got repetitive for me. So I just needed a new challenge.
And so you discovered DevOps. I when I talked to you, one of the cool things that I remember about your story was that you sort of also fell into the DevOps thing also. And can you talk a little bit about how you sort of asked more senior engineers, right? Like, hey, do you
Hmm.
need can you help, do you need some help or can I lend a hand in some way? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that really is sort of what opened the door for you thinking about moving into DevOps, right?
Yeah. So at my current job, I just recently moved into DevOps about 6 months ago. I was the main SDET for our company at the time. And when I kind of got the idea that I wanted to pivot to DevOps, our solutions director, who's basically our solutions architect, was just swamped with work. And I just kind of went to him and I said, "Hey, I know you're busy. Is there anything I can help you, like any small tasks or anything like you don't want to do that you could give to me and I could focus on that?" And he said, "Sure." And so I started just editing some YAML files for our GitLab CI/CD pipeline for different repos that we had, and we needed to optimize them because there was a lot of repeated code, and we were trying to obviously not do that because you don't want to have a lot of repeated code. So that's kind of where I got my feet wet a little bit, was just going up to him and saying, "Hey, do you need help?"
And so he put you on like some projects, and that's sort of how you started to learn what they do in DevOps. Did you have an understanding of DevOps prior to asking about
Yeah,
it?
yeah, so I had an understanding of it because I really wanted to get back into it back 10 years ago, back at the former company I was at. The only problem is there just wasn't room for me to transition to that role. Unfortunately, there wasn't a role for me. And at the time, they weren't willing to train me. So I would just had to focus on QA and just getting better at that, getting better at my development skills. So unfortunately, there was no way to pivot to that. But yeah.
Were there some skills that you did learn as a QA that were sort of translatable that helped you?
Yeah, obviously, like learning software development, like object-oriented programming, learning how to program, being able to read the code, read different languages. Like when I first started writing code, I started writing in Python. And when I
Mhm.
got to this shop, it's all TypeScript and C Sharp, so .NET completely. So I had to completely relearn not relearn, but just pivot to a different language. So having those skills from the QA background really helped. Also having the mindset of a quality insurance engineer, you have to put yourself in the mindset, even though like in DevOps, you're dealing more with infrastructure, and a lot of your quote unquote customers are like the developers because they depend on you to help them get the code from like staging to development to production. You really have to be able to kind of bridge that gap. And with QA, you have to have soft skills to be able to work with them, not only them, but like product managers, business analysts, kind of the whole. scope of all the stakeholders who were involved in that, because that really helps you bridge that gap. And also being thinking about the end user as well. So in my case, a lot of things I work with mainly instead of like the end user, I work with a lot of developers. So I try to think of the pain points of like what would make their life a little bit easier if I could optimize this or create some scripts for them to make their workflow a little bit easier. That's what I try to focus on.
Right. It's always thinking about automation, right? How can we make
Hmm.
things easy? So from the time of you working in QA, how long were you in QA?
Oh, geez, a long time. Probably 10, 12 years at least. So
Wow.
quite a
Okay.
while. Yeah.
So from the time that you started to make this transition to working in DevOps, how long was that time period?
It took, so when I talked to my current manager about transitioning, it was about 6 months or so.
Hmm.
Um, I had started to try to prove myself in that arena when I first got to the current company. We didn't have any like CI infrastructure for test automation, so I learned all that and built that from scratch just by Googling and asking a lot of people. And that kind of gave them a little bit more confidence saying like, oh, he's already doing some of the work, so let's give him a shot. So you kind of gotta, you can't just go and give the ask. You gotta kind of like prove your worth in a sense to say like he knows what he's doing in some capacity and then go make the ask.
But you also have to work up the nerve to make the ask, right? You've got to shift your mindset
Yes.
to want to step into a bigger role and to be bold enough to ask for that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you, as my manager always says, like I go to him with like what I think are stupid questions, but in reality, there's really no stupid questions. Like we had an issue the other day where we were dealing with some DNS changes and stuff went down. We didn't know what had quite happened until we went in and we're with we're doing multi-cloud environments. So one DNS change here brought down something here, so we had to go back and forth and figure that out. But I was like, "What happened?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm glad you asked." So we went through the whole gambit of explaining exactly what happened. He's like, "I'm glad you asked because that shows initiative. That shows you actually care about the project and what we're doing, instead of just assuming that you know and then making a big mistake down the road."
Right. And for those who might be thinking of taking your advice and asking, you were saying that some of these senior engineers are actually happy to pass off some of the work that not that they don't want to focus on it, but they're happy to have a helping hand, with some of the other stuff that they don't necessarily want to be doing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't just jump in and expect to do like a full migration on your own if you've never done it before. You got to start kind of like on the bottom rung, get the low-hanging fruit, just get your chops in and get the reps in to really start making an impact later on down the road with those bigger projects.
Right. And so what is your current role now?
So my current role by title is DevOps engineer.
Okay, so you're a DevOps engineer.
Yep.
And so can you, I guess this is the fun part. What changes have you seen in your life since you were able to make this transition? Are you working more remotely? Were you working remotely as a QA?
Yeah. So our company, after COVID hit, they went full remote and then they figured out that they were like 10x, 20x, whatever number you want to put behind it, way more productive. So when I first came in, excuse me, I was fully remote. We had an office in our downtown, but they ended up closing that. And so with that, I was going in like a couple days a week, but that hybrid environment didn't really suit us since a lot of us
Mhm.
are scattered all over the country. So I'm fully remote and been fully remote for about 3 years now, which is great. And like when I did get promoted, salary definitely ticked up. So I mean, that's always nice.
Can you give us, I know
And
you're not going to give us specifics, but
yeah,
is there a ballpark or anything that you can give us in terms of the salary jump that people could look at if they were to make this transition?
sure. I think a lot of it depends on like what like pay band you were coming from and given the position. And for me, I was closer to the top of the pay band, so it was about 10 to 15% bump in pay for me. So a
Nice,
decent chunk.
nice.
But
And
yeah.
what about just growth overall in opportunities?
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of opportunities to touch a lot more things versus like being an SDET. With an SDET, my scope was a little bit more limited to like the product set or that I was working on. And I did have a lot of impact, but it wasn't as direct impact as being a DevOps engineer. So now I have a lot more direct impact, which is good and bad because you really got to be careful when you're in production and you
Yeah.
click the wrong thing, you could easily wipe something out. So you got to be cognizant of that. But yeah, it's opened more opportunities as far as like I would say when I made that shift on like per se like LinkedIn or something like, hey, I got a title change, woohoo. I've definitely gotten contacted by a lot more people. Like you guys reached out to me. I get constant messages from people, personal messages from people on LinkedIn a lot about my experience, or a lot of it's kind of like salesy and product stuff, which a lot of it I kind of ignore, but there are recruiters that do contact me as well. So you definitely get a lot more because DevOps is really in demand right now, especially with AI coming online. People still need their code to be delivered, and it's just a really high demand field. And the ceiling for DevOps versus like SDET, I feel, is a lot higher and you can grow a lot more and you can pivot to different roles a little bit more easily, in my opinion.
Nice. Well, of course, change also doesn't come without obstacles, without challenges. Were there any challenges that you might want to speak to in making the shift? Because obviously there was a lot of upside. Was there anything that you found challenging in making the shift?
Sure. Yeah. A l- Learning. So DevOps has a lot of tools. There are so many tools out there, so many repos you can go check out. Everyone's trying to push something to you. But learning like the core skills, like I think getting into like if you're going to be a DevOps engineer, please know Linux and how that works at a lower level, and just how to navigate files, what's the etc file system do, and all that system D. Um, I've had to learn all that stuff because before I came from like a Windows environment, so I didn't have to worry about that as much. But now I'm being forced into Linux, which is fine because I love Linux. Um, Learning the tool sets is the biggest thing. And then learning how to go into logs like telemetry and see what exactly is going on, how to diagnose something efficiently. Are the API calls returning the correct responses? And that's partially part of testing, but you also got to know a lot of that stuff as well when it comes to
Mhm.
DevOps and triaging things that are failing. So yeah,
But that's where also having the mind of a QA really helped you because you're looking for those issues and looking for you have that testing mind of what to look for.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Like if anything, like if you're doing like I say, like doing API testing, you got to go and pass your payload in, see what the response is. Am I getting the correct response? Or if I'm getting an incorrect response, am I getting like a 403 forbidden or am I getting a 500 server error? If that's the case, what went down and how did it go down? Then working your way backwards from there. So yeah.
Was there anything that you learned that you didn't expect to learn? Did anything surprise you in making the switch?
Yeah. When I made it over to this switch, we didn't have like semantic versioning um, instilled. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, that's just basically how you tell which version of software you're on, like 1.0.1 or anything like that.
Hmm.
So my boss and the CTO wanted an automated version of that. So I had to go out and figure out how to do that. And that took me about 2 or 3 months and a lot of pain. But now we have fully automatic semantic versioning in all of our repos, and it just comes down to a simple YAML file and a few CI/CD scripts that go along with it. So anytime we do anytime we do any like deploys to like production or develop or anything like that, we have certain incrementation that happens between that just based off the configs I've built around that. So that was a big challenge.
And what would you say is, I guess, your favorite part of what you get to do daily?
Um, there's so much to learn, which is overwhelming, but it's like super cool. So like today, I was deep diving into CloudFront, learning how like that we can do like multi-tenant distributions and try to consolidate that into like one distribution versus having so many going off of the same like cert because we have a cert that has a like X amount of domains associated with it. So I was looking into seeing how Could we make that a little bit more efficient? And then also I'm looking into seeing if we can add in some like containerization with like Docker and K8s as well, because we have some web jobs that we want to potentially put into that and automate that, orchestrate that. So yeah, there's just so many cool things that you can do with DevOps compared to what I was doing in testing. There's just like a platter of stuff that you can do. So that's really cool.
No more getting bored.
No, there if you're getting bored, you're not doing it right.
Right. So I guess if you had to start completely over again, is there anything that
Mhm.
you would do differently, or was starting out in QA sort of the stepping stone that you needed to make that shift into DevOps?
Yeah. So I guess 2 points on that. If I were to go back in time and tell myself, like right out of high school, I would have said, like, you need to buckle down and take this a little bit more seriously instead of having too much fun and go and finish your schooling. But I mean, that was back then, back in 2006 when degrees mattered a lot more.
Hmm.
Coming from like my QA background, like when I back started QA back in 2011, I would have said to myself probably like learn the basics of coding, learn testing for sure, but start getting into automation, start asking more questions about how things work. And that way you kind of can set yourself up for success and be the subject matter expert on different domains.
Right. And what are I guess what would you say are some of the like key tools and platforms? I know you mentioned like you gotta know Linux, but what were some of the key
Mhm.
tools and platforms that you definitely explored and that you found are a must or are, most useful?
Yeah. So obviously Linux, learning to live in terminal, um, stay out of the GUIs as much as you can when you first learn. Like just dive into terminal and learn how things work. I would say as far as other tools, there's a lot of cross functionality between most tools. Like if you go into any CI tool or anything, most of them are YAML based or JSON based. So you can take that foundational knowledge and apply that to a lot of things. Um, Other tools like I use VS Code at work. I really enjoy that IDE. It has a lot of functionality and a lot of add-ons, which good and bad depending on how much you want to use. But those are pretty much my favorite tools. And then I also on the side, like a side project, I'm spinning up like a just kind of a little home lab where I'm building like Arch Linux from scratch, just to kind of learn the more of the guts of Linux and really deep dive into it. So yeah.
Wow, okay. So you really have a passion.
Mhm.
And when you were learning, how did you learn? Did you take courses? I know you mentored under the engineers that you were working with.
Mhm.
Was it trial and error? Like, what was your sort of process?
A lot of trial and error. There's always going to be trial and error.
Yeah.
I so courses, I have a love-hate relationship with courses because you can get stuck in what's called like course hell, where you just kind of get stuck in doing courses just for the sake of doing courses. And you
Uh-huh.
don't apply that knowledge when you do the course. So if you're going to do a course, take what you learned that day and go apply it somewhere. Otherwise, it's
Hmm.
not going to stick, and then you're just going to get this false sense of accomplishment by just watching videos forever. So I do like courses, but I'm a huge fan of just getting your hands dirty and just starting to build stuff. And yeah, I would say that's kind of the best way I've learned is just getting my hands dirty, trial and error, asking questions that I don't know the answers to. AI is really nice for that to just go and be like, hey, what do I do? So in some instances, sometimes it'll lead you down rabbit holes, so you got to be careful with that. But yeah, just the biggest advice is just going and asking questions and getting your hands dirty.
Yeah, and not being afraid to try, right? I know that it's not perfect, and I remember you were telling me about how you deleted a whole stack one time and you freaked out a little bit, but it's
Yeah. Oh my
all through
goodness.
the
Yeah.
learning process. I don't know if you
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Sure. I won't give too much detail, but I was working on a CloudFormation template, which if you don't know what that is, that's just AWS's version of infrastructure as code, or it's similar to, I guess, agnostic like Terraform, which is a more common tool for that.
Mhm.
And I needed to make some changes to that. And I was we wanted to change the naming scheme for it. So I went in, pushed that up, and I went through and deleted the old template, pushed this one, and completely wiped a database by accident. Luckily, it wasn't production, but I had to make the humble call to my manager and say what I did. And he's like, "Wait, you didn't make production?" I'm like, "No, I did not." He's like, "Okay, good." So after being on a call with him and the principal engineer for about 3 hours, we finally got it fixed. But that taught me a valuable lesson of before you do something like that, please like understand what you're doing or ask questions if you're not confident in what you're doing. So
Yeah, you gotta be willing to put yourself out there, but be careful.
yeah, caution. Yeah.
Yeah, caution. What would you say, any QA professionals that are on with us tonight can start doing immediately today,
Mhm.
towards making that transition?
Yeah. If you're not familiar with Linux, like start, download, learn how to install it, go grab a USB stick, learn how to install an ISO onto that, and then throw it onto like a cheap laptop. And then just install it, go through that process and learn how Linux works and start playing with that. That's the biggest thing because those skills come in handy so much. Learning how to grep, learning how to tell logs and everything is just kind of your bread and butter. Learning how to monitor. That's where I would start as far as that. And then if you're going to pick up a programming language, Python is like the biggest one I've seen in demand. So learn Python, learn the basics of that, object-oriented programming. You don't have to get like super deep into like data structures and algorithms. You can if you want. I mean, it's definitely helpful to learn all that stuff and how things really work on a deep level. But that's kind of like at a bare minimum is where I would start. Don't jump too far into like just jumping straight into cloud completely.
Right.
So just start with the fundamentals and work your way up from there.
Okay. I do see that we've got some people. Let me see who've got their hand raised. Um, we're going to go ahead and let some of these guys ask you some questions. Let
Mhm.
me just go ahead and give them the floor here. Hold on one second. Hmm. Bring you guys up. I think Mark had a question early on. Mark, did you still want to ask that question?
I am all good though. Thank you.
You're all good. Okay. Um, who else has a question here? Let me see. Okay, I see you've got a question.
Yes, I do have a question. I joined kind of late. Just want to know, normally what I ask on interviews is like, what is your day-to-day like as a DevOps engineer, pretty much?
Mhm. Yeah, so my day to day, like I have given a certain day, I have X amount of meetings. We have like engineering stand up. I also still attend like our quality stand up to kind of help there and keep that bridge open. But a lot of my day is checking logs, making sure everything's working, looking at the current sprint items, seeing what needs to be worked on. If I don't have anything else to work on, sometimes I'll just go into like self-study and learn things that I can enhance our current stack with or try to make developers' lives a little bit easier. But a lot of it's just managing like CI/CD pipelines, making sure everything's going through. If there's a problem, then me and my manager are the first ones who have to go in there and try to triage all that. So does that kind of answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, pretty much. I try to get a good scope of things like when interviews too, because I'm trying to transition to DevOps as well.
Awesome.
Okay, well, Tyler's here if you've got any questions. What time, at what point in the interview did you come in? Did you hear any of his experience beforehand?
Yeah, I got some bits and pieces. Him talking about not deleting production, so that's
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
thing as well. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen
don't
that
do
happen
that.
firsthand.
Well, Tyler, if you want to just, I guess he made the jump. Basically, Tyler, if you just want to tell him kind of how you made that jump by asking your superiors, or how, if you want to just reiterate since he joined a little bit
Yeah.
late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. No problem. So I made the jump by first going to who's my current manager, who is the engineering, sorry, solutions architect, and asking him. basically like, how can I help you? Just kind of a basic, simple thing. Like, what are you doing that you don't want to do? That's something I could pick up and help you kind of make your life a little bit easier. And the first thing he said was go and optimize these YAML files for our CI pipeline. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And that's kind of how I got started as well. But before you do that, make sure you can like have enough like breadth as far as like how am I trying to put this? Make sure you do your job well currently, because a lot of times like if you're so you're doing, I'm not saying anyone's doing their job badly. If you're doing your job not well and you try to go and ask that favor to like, oh, I want to learn how to do this, and it's like, well, you're not doing well at your current job, so why should I have give you the opportunity to do this? So make sure you're actually doing well at your current job, but just go and make the ask. If they say no, then that's fine. It is what it is, and then you can kind of revisit that later and see if they have anything else that they have for you to do, or you can ask other developers, like, what are some pain points that you have that would make things a little bit easier for you? So just kind of being in that mindset of like, I want to help make your experience better or make the company's experience better by doing X, Y, Z. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, because then by doing that, you were already working with different pieces of it. So when the full opportunity came about, they were like, well, he's already been working on these parts of it. So it was an easier transition for you to take on
Yeah.
that role.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
typically you learn by doing anyway. So yeah, I get
Oh
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I don't know if you missed it, but Tyler basically said that the overall transition took him about only 6 months. So from doing what he was doing for 11, 12 years, you said, Tyler,
Mm-hmm.
into a new role, after asking, took about 6 months. So, you can start today. Start learning some of the tools that he mentioned, and then start asking questions.
Sure.
Uh, okay. Is there anyone else who has any other questions? Did you have any other questions? I'm sorry.
No, that's pretty much it for me. I think I heard him go over some of the tools that he uses, and we use those as well too, doing automation.
Okay, great. All right, I'm gonna go ahead. Okay? Is there anyone else that had any questions that would like to ask Tyler about his experiences? Yes. Go ahead, Hannah.
Hey there. Thanks so much for doing this webinar. First, I really appreciate it. And hearing like behind the scenes has been super helpful. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been doing like my own business in web design for like 10 years now, but I
Mm,
have a development background. So I have a bachelor's of science in software development. And I was wondering, like, do you have any recommendations just from being in the space? For breaking into the job market currently? Because what you've described for DevOps sounds really intriguing and like the type of thing like my brain would absolutely love to do, like just like
Mm-hmm.
efficiency, optimizing, helping people
Oh
out.
yeah.
Like I love that, like how you described it. So I'm brushing up on like Java right now, and I thought that's would be a good thing because that's what I'm familiar with. But you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
Python, so I guess I'm just wondering, should I continue to like refresh on Java and Spring Boot? Um, should I make sure I get a decent amount of Python in there? And then any tips for like just interviewing and creating your resume?
That is a lot.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that's okay. I appreciate it, Anna. Um, yeah, so it's heavily like, so we're a .NET shop. So somewhat familiar to Java. It's just
Mhm.
Microsoft's spin on it. So we have .NET and then like JavaScript and all that. But for DevOps specifically, I would definitely start looking into Python for sure. It's one of the bigger languages because it's easier to script with versus like Java or C Sharp. It's not strongly typed, so you don't have to compile anything versus being getting the words, but
Okay.
basically you don't have to compile it. But so I would definitely focus on that. But also look at like your where your market is and see what they are requiring, because some shops might like you to have Java as well. You just never know.
Mhm.
So that way you'd have like at least a basis, because while Python's really big, like since we do .NET, I read a lot of C# code, so that has definitely helped me. So I would start there with Python, and then as far as
Okay.
what was your other question about like interviewing? Was that
Yeah. Interviewing or like putting together like your resume and
Ye-
what they're looking for, but you got kind of answered a little bit.
Sure. So interviewing, it's been a while since I've interviewed, but I would definitely like try to build some side projects. Do a little bit more than just your like basic to-do list that everybody wants to do. Build something that you can like go to GitHub and say, look, I have this portfolio, I have this app that's like containerized, it's running in like K3s or K8s. And here's what I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing. And then I'm taking my secrets and I'm managing my secrets, putting them up in GitLab so that way everything is secure and no one can get in as easily. And
Right.
then tie that up into like um, a cloud like AWS or Azure. They have like free tiers for a
Okay.
lot of stuff. And then if you want to get really cool, you can do like observability with like Grafana or anything like that to like
Mm-hmm.
display like charts or anything like that or certain data points. So
Okay.
that would be a definite thing I would start working on.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like resume, definitely build your resume to be like with the star method. If you haven't heard of that, a lot of the bigger companies like your Facebook or Netflix or any of those, um, it's what is it? It's situation, task, action, and
Mm-hmm.
result. So build your bullet points off things that you've accomplished, what you did,
Mm-hmm.
and how it benefited the company. Like I automated this one thing, it sped up our deploys and then increased
Mm-hmm.
our downtime by like 99% or something like that.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
decreased, not increased our downtime. Sorry.
Yeah. Deep.
Don't do
Right.
that. Don't increase your downtime.
Doing.
Okay. Okay, that
Uh,
is all super helpful. One question real quick. You mentioned a tool related to observability. What was the name of that
Mhm.
one?
Grafana.
Grafana. Okay, I haven't heard of that.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, thank you. This is all very helpful. I
Yeah, no
appreciate it.
problem. Mhm.
That's great. Yeah, the STAR method. That's good to note for a resume. Okay, Ali has a question. Go ahead, Ali.
Hi, Tyler. Thank you so much. I have one question. Do you use AI tools to improve your coding when you are working on the real project, and how safe is that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, yeah, no problem. Thank you for the question, Ali. So I use GPT um, once in a while, and then like in my IDE, I have Amazon Q, which basically calls out to Claude Sonnet's API in the back end. Um, I use that sparingly because I've had it lead me down rabbit holes um, to the point where it was just hindering me, where I've spent like an hour chasing something where I could have finished it in like a couple like lines of code. Like for instance, I was having to um, configure a Docker container, and in the documentation, it was saying to do this, but I went to like Amazon Q and I said, "What's this like? What's your opinion on this?" And it went and started giving me like all these different like bash scripts and everything. And then all I really had to do was just change the entry point of the container, and I was good to go. So use AI sparingly. Don't believe everything it tells you, especially with code. Make sure you're testing it, understand what you're putting in there before you just put it in there, because sometimes it could lead you down a um, nasty rabbit hole. Another example, I was training a manual QA engineer. They wanted to be an SDET, so I was showing them how to do that. We were about 2 or 3 months in, and he was trying to do a loop through some products we have to try to do some assertions against that. And he committed the code, and I looked at the code, and it was four for loops nested deep. And I said, absolutely not. I'm kicking this right back. And he's like, well, that's what ChatGPT told me. And I'm like, don't rely on ChatGPT. Like sit there, put a breakpoint in, step through the code, see what it's doing. Like you're making this way too hard. And all here. So lesson learned, don't just take face value what AI is telling you. Definitely, it's a great resource and it can help speed things up. It's helped me immensely in some areas, but don't just take it for face value. Make sure you understand what it's doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Of course. Was there anybody else that has any questions before? Okay, let's see. Oh, looks like Webb's got another question. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just as far as when you're in your IDE, are you guys using Terraform heavy for infrastructure as code when I guess spinning up new things in the cloud?
No, since we're mainly AWS, we focus more on CloudFormation templates. We didn't see a need to transition to Terraform. Terraform is good if you're doing like multi-cloud or just want to be cloud agnostic, but for us, CloudFormation templates work just fine for what we need to do.
Got you. And did you find AWS to be kind of challenging? Because I like GCP a little bit more just because of the layout and all the documentations there.
Sure. I've lived in AWS for quite a while, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I've dipped my toes in Azure and did not like it. But I mean, I'm technically under the covers. They're all doing the same thing. They just have a different name in front of it.
Right.
So, and I've never touched GCP, so I can't really answer to that as far as like a difference between AWS and GCP. But for me, I like AWS because I think their console is a little bit easier to use for me than like say Azure or anything. So I feel like their documentation is pretty decent, in my opinion. So I didn't find it too bad. Like obviously when you're starting out in anything new, it's hard. But once you kind of get used to the flow and what each different thing means, and find that commonality between GCP and AWS, it'll get a little bit easier for you.
Gotcha.
Okay. And it looks like we have Nasiba. I hope I'm saying that right. Nasiba? Is that how you say it?
Yes, Nasiba. Hi. Hi, Taylor.
Nasiba.
Yes. Honestly, I joined later, but looking back, is there anything you would have done differently during your transition? My question.
Sure. The answer I gave before was just kind of going back like from like QA like probably 10 years ago when I first started that. But I would definitely ask more questions of senior engineers and not be afraid to ask questions, even though you feel like it might be a quote unquote like dumb or stupid question. Like it's not. And most senior engineers, if they're good, they love teaching. Most engineers I've ran into. There's a few bad eggs out there, but for the most part, I've had pretty good experiences. I would definitely would have taken back in the day taken learning programming a little bit more seriously than I did. I thought back in the day I could just kind of coast through this career and then I'd be fine. But once I started getting bored, I realized I needed to get my acumen up and really learn how to do true software development, how that process works. So that way, when you're working as a DevOps engineer, you know the pain points of what a software engineer has to deal with as far as like committing code or different pain points in the process of submitting that code or the infrastructure is not working properly. How do I fix that? So those would be kind of a couple tips that I would have done back in the day.
All right. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Okay, did we have any other questions? Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, Mark, looks like he's got one more question. Go ahead, Mark.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for just doing this panel as well. My question was just on the lines of, I know you kind of talked about this before, but for somebody who doesn't, I guess, have a background at all in like QA specifically and wanted to transition into DevOps, what would you give, I guess, advice into trying to get into that way?
Where are you coming from as far as trying to transition?
Kind of technical support, also just getting into software engineering as well.
Nice.
But I have also been into like interested in DevOps, so I just kind of wanted to pick your brain on that and see where you had advice on that.
Yeah, so you're coming from a pretty good spot as well, because I totally feel you. I did technical support for about 2 or 3 years. So I understand that realm. Definitely, if you don't have any programming experience, like I said earlier, like definitely start learning Python. That'll be your biggest bang for your buck. Plus, Python's made to be easily human readable, so it's a lot easier versus say jumping into like a strongly typed language like C Sharp or Java, because there's a lot more to learn as far as that goes. But for DevOps, I would definitely do that. If you have an extra like a cheap laptop or like a thin client or anything, go learn how to go throw on Ubuntu, which is a Linux distribution. Start playing around with that, learn how that kind of works. Um, there's a good YouTube channel I recommend. It's called Learn Linux TV, where the guy literally goes from like basic Linux to like advanced. So I follow him quite a bit. And he has a lot of good information on that. So that's kind of where I would start from your point of view, I would say. As far as like certifications or anything, definitely like um, Network Plus is one I've taken before, and because you definitely got to know how networking works, like configuring VPCs in like AWS or I forgot what they're called in like Azure, but learning how networking works, learn how what a CIDR range is, what are class A, B, C, and D, what do those different IPs mean, what's subnetting mean, all that type of stuff. So yeah, sorry. Hopefully I didn't give you too much of a long-winded answer. I know I can get really deep with this stuff. So
No, that was great. I really appreciate it. I know you said you were watching somebody on YouTube specifically. What was the title? I think you said that what it was.
it's Learn Linux TV.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Last call. Anybody else have any questions?
I have one question. Tyler, I see that a lot of boot camps, they will say that we will teach you DevOps from beginning, and they will give kind of experience built like fake resume. How what do you suggest?
I can't speak to boot camps because I've never gone through one. I went the traditional route and got a bachelor's degree and then kind of learned on the job. I've heard some boot camps are pretty good, some others be cautious of that. But from what I can say, um, start building stuff on your own. If you want to do a boot camp, just make sure it's a great boot camp and they have a good reputation and go from there. Or if you feel the need that you want to go back and get like say a bachelor's in computer science or software engineering, definitely you can definitely go that route as well. But the biggest bang for your buck is just going to be getting hands-on work and collaborating with like say people in this call who are like-minded and want to make that career shift, or joining like a Discord where there's engineers who have been doing this for a long time and asking them questions is a good way to kind of get started. So,
Okay.
Thanks.
mhm.
And I think we've got Nick Chin. Let me go ahead. Nick, go ahead and ask your question.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to know, and I apologize, I missed like the first 15 minutes of the call. Um, I wanted to know like what were some of the aspects of QA that were most transferable into DevOps? It sounds like troubleshooting is like a soft skill that you kind of gain that does become helpful in DevOps, but I guess as far as like other things, framework or tools that you find helpful, and did you do any automation testing?
Yeah. So, um, for like having a QA mindset, like you were saying, Nick, troubleshooting is definitely up there because as a QA engineer, you definitely want to be able to troubleshoot something because you might be getting a false positive when it's actually the right thing or the wrong thing. Having that mindset of being curious, trying to figure out what's the positive case, what's the negative case. If I do this, if I do that, is it going to break something? As far as automation, yes, I've done test automation for about 4 or 5 years now. So that definitely helped because it got my programming chops up, and it forced me to build something from scratch. Like our test framework where I work, there was nothing, so I had to learn how to build that completely from scratch using a framework that I chose. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your answer and your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Sure. I think if that's it, we're going to go ahead and close out. Tyler, thank you so much for being here with us. It looks like you were able to help a lot of people tonight. And thank you to those of you that took the time out to listen in and to join us. As you can see, everybody's journey is different, but stories like Tyler's show that change is possible if you are willing to step up and ask. In your case, right? Made all the
Mhm.
difference, just having the courage to ask. So whether you're currently in QA or are learning to code or are considering a shift, just remember that everything is a step forward and you can never really truly fail unless you decide to stop trying. So we hope this has really been an encouragement to all of you, and we hope that you have a great night, guys. And thank you so much for joining us for Clarusway Tech Talks. Good night.
Cool. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it again.
Thank you, Tyler.